Well, Michael, thanks for having me back on.
Glad to have you back on. Last time we were talking about the question of abortion, and we touched on it from several angles, but we especially focused on highlighting recovering from an abortion, how to heal from it. And of course, this is going to often, in many cases, raise the question of the fate of unbaptized infants. There's going to be a lot of people who have either had a miscarriage or an abortion, and they wonder about the fate of their unbaptized infants. So that brings us into the question of limbo. So I want to maybe start out, maybe defining our terms. Can you tell us what exactly is limbo?
Okay, and just to follow up on what you're saying, this is a extremely important question for most women who've had abortions. That's one of their many thoughts is, what's the state of my baby's soul? What was my baby feeling? Is my baby in heaven? Was my baby happy? All that stuff, and it died. And I think knowing the theology, what we can know from divine revelation, leads to proper pastoral practices in this matter. Yeah, so your question was defining limbo, I think you said, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the basics of what exactly it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. So I think maybe just to back up a little bit, we'll get to the definition.
Sure.
But I think to back up a little bit so our viewers understand why this is a problem, why it's a theological problem. Because I think for the modern man, most people are like, well, of course the babies are in heaven, right? They're innocent, right? Because we equate innocence with holiness, which isn't personal innocence with holiness, which isn't necessarily the case. Yeah, right. It's not. So the reason why this is an issue is because of original sin.
Yeah.
Right? There's only one immaculate conception aside from our Lord, of course, and there we know of for sure of John the Baptist and Jeremiah sanctified in the womb. Other than those special cases, and I think it's Joseph too, but that's another theological.
Sure.
But other than those cases, the rest of us enter into this world in original sin, and the only certain way we know of removing original sin is through baptism. Now, what's original sin? Original sin, St. Thomas defines as, well, there's two elements, a formal or a primary element, and then a material or a secondary element. We all know that the secondary element, the material element of the inclination to sin, we're all aware of that. But he says actually the formal or the more important element is the deprivation of grace. When Adam sinned, he lost grace not only for himself, but for the entire human race. Just as if he would have taken his natural life, it would have cost natural life for the entire human race. Thanks be to God, he didn't kill himself, right? We'd all be dead, right? We wouldn't have existed. He didn't take his natural life, but he did take his supernatural life, which meant you can't give what you don't have. So he didn't have that to pass on. So the whole human race would have been, in Augustine's words, the massa bagnata, the condemned mass. But so God sent a second Adam, Christ, to restore grace to the human race. And that grace is a share in the life of God, which enables one to see God's face when one dies. But the ordinary means to receive that grace, especially for an infant, is baptism. So there's the problem. It's like, okay, you have an infant who's innocent, yes, not guilty of personal sin, but hasn't received baptism, which is the only certain means we know from the new Adam, Christ, that these children can receive sanctifying grace. So there's your theological dilemma. The theologians are dealt with this. They're kind of a tertium quid, if you will. They're a third thing. They're not evil. They're not persons who've committed mortal sin and so are merit damnation.
Yeah.
They also, by appearances, I'll put it like that, by appearance, they haven't received the sacraments, which is the only certain way to receive grace. And so the question is, if they did not receive grace, if indeed they died in original sin, they died in original sin, then what would happen to them? Would they be damned? Well, that doesn't make sense. That seems to be, it would be unjust, though some have posited that, but that, certainly the consensus today is that appears gravely unjust, that a child who didn't do anything wrong would be condemned to punishment. But that child hasn't been elevated to the supernatural order either. If the child's in original sin, I keep emphasizing it because we'll get back to that. So if the child is in the state of just natural, he has his natural life, or she has natural life that hasn't been elevated, no personal sin, then the theologians have said, well, God is just, and he's merciful, so he will give the child what that deserves. What does that child deserve according to the nature that child has? A perfect natural happiness. So this is the idea of limbo. Limbo is a place and a state in which there's a perfect natural happiness. We're talking like that like real like Garden of Eden kind of stuff, like a paradise. You know, some have pointed to the bosom of Abraham in the scriptures as actually interpreting that as a picture of limbo. We often
Mhm.
think it's heaven, but some have said no, that's actually limbo. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a date on that.
sure.
So that's important to realize that we're not talking about a place where like it's gray and people are walking to the walls, and you know, it's a happy place. In fact, one of my priest confreres, and I'll end on this, he said, you know, in a way, if you say, when most people think of heaven,
Hmm.
we can't imagine heaven. Eye has not seen, ears not heard. So it's actually literally impossible to think or even imagine what heaven's like, because it's the beatific vision. That's the essence of heaven. So when we try to imagine heaven, we're actually imagining something like limbo. In fact, limbo, if there are indeed souls in this place, would actually be better than our imagination of what heaven is. So
Sure. Sure.
anyway, that's kind of a state of perfect natural happiness in short. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a place of torture or suffering. It's a place of perfect natural happiness. Now, some people are going to say, but that just seems so unjust. If God is a good God and is a just God, he would give them heaven. What is the problem theologically underlying that opinion?
Yeah. The problem theologically is seeing heaven as something due to us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Pelagianism.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it doesn't really see this as a grace. It sees it as something that's really owed to us. And
Mhm.
God owes no one heaven.
Right.
But then
Yeah,
as you point out, that but then they're also not owed suffering and pain and
right,
damnation and
right.
torment.
Right, because they haven't done it. So they haven't done anything wrong, so they don't deserve that, but they haven't been elevated to supernatural level. And this is where our Protestant brethren are correct. There's nothing we can do, no good work that we do, nor suffering we endure that merits for us the initial grace.
Hmm.
I mean, that would be Pelagianism. So we're
Hmm.
Catholics, we're not Pelagians. So the initial grace,
Hmm.
graces upon the initial grace we can merit for
Sure.
sure, but the initial grace. And so those children, even the horror of abortion, being murdered in one's own mother's womb,
Hmm.
um, would not in and of itself merit that grace. But but you know, there's more to be said about this story. I mean, it would certainly merit, God would still give a natural happiness. And anyway, maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Point is, there's no suffering we can do, or suffering we endure, or good we do that merits the initial grace. And so this is good for us to realize in our own personal lives, to realize
Hmm.
if I'm in a state of sanctifying grace, or even if one is not, but still has a chance to gain heaven, to realize that's an amazing gift, way
Hmm.
beyond. I mean, if you were to tell Aristotle or the ancient philosophers, you have a chance to see the essence of the first cause, otherwise known as God, they'd
Hmm.
be like, what? They would be
Hmm.
blown out of the water. They'd be like, that's
Hmm.
wow, it's way beyond human capabilities. But so
Yeah. Now, I think where some confusion comes in this discussion is a misunderstanding of what exactly limbo is. Now you've explained the concept, but where some people get hung up is they look at the Council of Florence and they see it's a language about how there could be some who die in a state of original sin going to hell. Now it does distinguish between what they experience versus those who go to hell who have actual sin, who have actually committed sin. It does distinguish them, but it locates their fate, those who die in a state of original sin alone, in hell, and they immediately think of torment, pain, and suffering. Is it not accurate to say, however, that limbo is actually a part of hell? In fact, limbo means fringe. It's on the border of hell, but it's not on
Limbus.
yeah, but it's not a place of pain and suffering as the part of hell where people who have actual sin go. It's rather a place of perfect natural happiness. Do you think that that's where a lot of people get confused?
That might, I think some people anyway, maybe a lot,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think this is where terminology is so key, and it might help to maybe, yeah, okay, like, yeah, to understand the terms well, and maybe even update the terms a little bit, because
Yeah.
when people hear the word hell, immediately most of us will think devil, fire, torture, horrible, like beyond horror. So, but that wasn't always, it wasn't restricted to that meaning for all the, and in this context, this theological context, it's not being restricted to that meaning. The word hell in this case is the region of the dead who are outside of the beatific vision. And that includes the damned and the hell of fire, right? But it would also include at one point the limbo of the fathers, those fathers before Christ's redemptive work were taken up to heaven. They were in this state of natural happiness, and it would also include the infants. So I think it would better to say, I mean, if somebody asks why do they say hell, okay, well, we don't mean hell of fire. We mean the place of those who have died who don't have the beatific vision. That's basically what it means.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. God bless.